Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Twist in Time in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 11, Hidori Village. Can we, Sakura huffed. Can we please stop for a while? She was largely ignored by the other three members of her team. She gritted her teeth and quickened her pace to catch up with them because they hadn't bothered stopping for her when she was catching her breath. Ah, Sakura-chan, you're back. Naruto remarked sweetly. Sakura, peeved by the comment, gave Naruto a murderous look. He gave her a careless shrug in return, plastering a smirk on his face. Team 7 had started their journey a little after 5 a.m. that morning, and now, after traveling on foot for almost 12 hours, Sakura was tired. Her muscles were aching and she just wanted to lie down for a while. Sasuke was faring a bit better, but even if he was in discomfort, he dared not show it. On the other hand, Kakashi and Naruto weren't bothered at all. Even though Naruto was back in his younger, weaker body, he always had the stamina to walk for days and not get tired, and he had been working on increasing it even more anyway. Kakashi wasn't even surprised by Naruto acing everything he came across anymore. He was, however, incredibly suspicious of anything related to Naruto, but he hadn't had any time to properly have a chat with the Hokage about it, and confronting Naruto himself wasn't an option because even now, facing and talking to Naruto was difficult. Getting emotionally invested with Naruto was difficult. And so he didn't try doing it at all. They walked for another 15 minutes before Sasuke, surprisingly, initiated a conversation. Will we be there soon? Hidori Village is supposed to be around 12 hours away at maximum speed. Kakashi hummed, yes, I think we'll be there in another hour since we're not exactly at maximum speed right now. If Sakura had the energy, she would have conveyed her shock over this fact beyond the widening of her eyes and dropping of her jaw. If this wasn't maximum speed, she didn't ever want to know what was. Say sensei, have the villages stopped sending out caravans for the time being? So they don't incur any more losses? Naruto inquired idly. But instead of Kakashi, Sakura answered, no, they're still sending out their goods. If they'd stopped, the bandits would change their base and loot other villages. This way, the bandits stay and we get to trail the carts and catch the bandits red-handed. Suddenly though, she lost all confidence and hastily added, oh, that's what I think is the decision made. I was just... Nah, you're right. Kakashi smiled. That's exactly what the villagers were told to do in the missive. Naruto flashed a smile at Sakura and looked ahead. He knew his advice had been taken to heart by his female teammate. She had stopped fawning over Sasuke entirely in the past month, and things were looking better for their relationship. Sure, they didn't talk much or even smile at each other, but Sasuke had definitely started noticing her. The real Sakura. Because even though she was still a clumsy ninja, just learning how to get the hang of the shinobi lifestyle, her brilliance in academics, analytical thinking, and sharp intellect were qualities of significance. Sasuke didn't even mind Sakura ranting about the shinobi rules, all in order, because that just showed her passion for this profession. It was completely dark by the time the four of them reached their destination. On entering the small village on the bank of a river, they were hit with all types of amazing smells thanks to the various different dishes being made in the restaurants on each nook and cranny of the village. Hidori Village was known for its culinary superiority. Even rice balls tasted heavenly if they came out of a restaurant from Hidori. The best part about this trip, in Naruto's honest opinion, was the chance to basically taste anything and everything the village had to offer. But unfortunately, business came before food, and so Team 7 immediately set out to locate the head of the village, whom they found fairly easily. He was a man in his mid-40s but looked much older, much more burdened. He was dressed in traditional garbs with a kindly smile and dull but wise eyes. Ah, good to see y'all here, he began on noticing their arrival. It's been a while since I've had to contact you shinobis for aid. Nice to meet you too, sir. I'm Kakashi, the jounin of this team. Kakashi replied in a civil tone. Hello, I'm Sakura Harino, a genin of Konoha. I'm Sasuke Uchiha. Wait. Naruto exclaimed as he walked up to the base of the large tree the head was previously sat at with his older friends. Is that the sake, the famous nectar sake exclusively made here and here alone? He looked like a fangirl holding the wooden bottle in his hands, almost on the verge of tears. Sir, You wouldn't mind, right? If I just take a quick taste of it and all? Like just for having a whole culinary experience and whatnot. Naruto could hear someone chuckling and he bet all his ryo that it was Kakashi. Naruto, how do you even know so much about sake? Sakura asked with a weirdly dangerous glint in her eyes. Never mind that, do you even know the ill effects of consuming alcohol? This was another recent development, or more crudely put, a recent quirk Sakura had developed. Going off on tangents about health-related issues. Those private lessons with the retired medic Nin were paying off, oh absolutely. Naruto pretended to look sheepish, ha 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 just a sip, Sakura, only a sip. That won't harm my health at all. Sakura raised an eyebrow but said nothing while Sasuke continued to look on impassively. Internally though, he just wanted to try out the unique tomato dumplings he'd heard about. The head coughed. Shinobi-san, why don't you just take the whole bottle with you? Welcome gift from my side. He smiled warmly and Naruto decided right then and there that this old guy was his favorite human on the planet now. He didn't miss it though, how the old man shared a look with Kakashi as if saying, monitor your brats, they look too young to drink this shit. Thank you so much. He said and promptly opened the bottle and took a huge sip. It was indeed the sweetest and richest sake, and he briefly reminisced the day he had become Hokage and his friends had bought him a bottle of this very sake for celebration. The head continued to chat a bit with Kakashi and after a few minutes, he left the area towards wherever his home was located at. Kakashi looked at his 3 students he'd become increasingly comfortable with in the past couple months. Naruto was holding the bottle firmly against his torso, restraining himself from drinking anymore. He didn't know if his body was up for it. Kami forbid he got dizzy, he was technically still on duty, after all, and though he had a questionable rule-abiding streak, he was not so blatant about breaking regulations either. Sasuke was intently listening to Naruto's quiet descriptions of how exactly the drink tasted, prompted by his own question posed towards the blonde. Sakura, meanwhile, looked at them both as if they were personally offending her in some way. Kakashi clapped and the 3 focused their attention on him. I've been briefed more thoroughly on the situation by the head and I'll let y'all know the details later, but for tonight, y'all can all enjoy the village and the food here. We're staying at the only inn the village has to offer. Be there before 9 p.m. By then. And he poofed away. So I was thinking we'd go eat ramen. No. Sasuke interrupted. Naruto smirked, oh I know. You want to eat that tomato thing, right? Sasuke proceeded to glare at him and Naruto glared right back. Boys, we're trying the barbecue here and that's final. Sakura said in a tone of voice that suggested that any more conversation on this topic would not be appreciated at all. Sasuke grudgingly agreed while Naruto diverted his attention from ramen to meat. He really didn't care what he ate. Food was food. And food was life. They walked through the village small town in all actuality, taking in all the different sights, mainly hotels, decorations put across the streets, getting mesmerized by the delicious aromas that the atmosphere was saturated with. At the southwestern end of the village was a small, rustic-looking restaurant. Outside was a sign that said Hamiko's Barbecue Place in bold lettering and a confetti background that clashed miserably with the look of the whole place. They decided to try the food there, partly because it looked peaceful, and partly because they were just too damn hungry to roam anymore. So this is like a 3-person date, right? Naruto asked with a contemplative frown on his face while they were being guided to their seats by the waiter. Sakura scoffed, idiot, none of us is romantically invested in any of the others. So, it's no date. Sasuke tried to hide his smile at the sheer stupidity of the conversation. They sat in their seats and Naruto winked playfully at Sakura. Seiko-chan, you wound me. Of course, we two are romantically invested in each other. At least I am. If one did not know Sakura as much as Naruto did, they would have mistaken the red on her cheeks for a blush instead of the anger it actually portrayed. Idiot, she repeated. A total idiot you are, Naruto. Yes, but only you're idiot, Seiko-chan. Naruto grinned when he saw Sakura gritting her teeth and restraining herself from plummeting Naruto into the deepest bowels of the earth. These days, as Sakura had come to realize, hitting Naruto wouldn't work since he always retaliated. He didn't care if she was a female. Equality stood firm even there. Sasuke, who had been quiet throughout the conversation, couldn't help but feel uneasy when Naruto flirted with Sakura. So he did what he was best at, diverted the topic as subtly as he could. "So you're a cheat, huh, Naruto?" Naruto looked at him as if he'd gone bonkers. "What even? Forgot about the Nara already?" Upon realizing that even Sasuke knew about his interests and love life, Naruto couldn't help but grin. "Oh, I didn't know you were into gossiping, Sasuke. I mean, how else would you know this little piece of information? I don't remember telling you any of it," Naruto said, tone light and playfully accusational. Sasuke felt indignant, and he was about to convey his indignation in the most unemotional manner when... Bahem, Sakura fake coughed. "The food is here." And that was the end of all conversation, because the meat was simply amazing. Juicy, soft, tasty, smoky, charred, crispy, all types of cooked meats were presented before them. After a whole 45 minutes, they'd finally eaten to their heart's content. They all paid in equal shares for the meal, thanked their waiter and the owner, and started on their way to the inn in the middle of the town. It didn't take them long to locate the small, cozy-looking inn, and upon entering they found their sensei leaning against the wall making small talk with the receptionist. When he saw them, he threw the room key to Sasuke and motioned for them to go get settled in. And they did. Kakashi came into the room an hour later, also a bit drunk, clothes slightly ruffled, but overall just as fit and sane as he had been at the beginning of the trip. "So my annoying genin, had fun?" "Not as much as you did with the," Naruto coughed, "receptionist," and he coughed again. Thankfully, Sakura didn't hear him clearly, but Sasuke did, and Naruto swore that his ears turned just the faintest shade of pink. Kakashi completely ignored his comment. Sakura called out, "Sensei." "Yes." "The instructions and briefing." "Oh yes. We leave the village with the caravans tomorrow morning at 10. We are going to trail them and also find signs for any ambush or the bandit base camp." "Got it." The three genin nodded. Naruto, however, was concerned about something much more sinister than bandits. He needed to confirm his theory though. "Tell me, what is the genjutsu like, the one the merchants and drivers were put under?" Kakashi hummed. "No idea actually. We'll get to know tomorrow, I suppose." He then waved them a goodbye and walked to the door lazily. One last look at his team members and he was out. "You know," Sakura began as if remembering something long forgotten. "My father is a merchant, right? And he's been trading with these villages. He's heard about the looting. He was telling my mother about an object infused with chakra being found at the side of road, probably left behind in haste by the bandits." "And? What's so interesting about that?" "I don't know. Just that the object had no traces of the infused chakra then. All the chakra was removed. But that's not possible unless the object was broken or something. Which it was not." All of them thought about this while they tried to fall asleep, but only Naruto knew what this truly meant. Same Hado was at work here. Chapter 12, Itake. Sasuke was drowning. It was a horrible feeling, like choking but trying to breathe with all you've got only for your lungs to stop working. It was like a painful dizziness spreading throughout your body, rendering all organs useless slowly till finally it got to your brain and it shut down completely. Sasuke was drowning in a sea of red. Red eyes, red blood, red moon of that day. The massacre, his brother no killer, his mother, his father, it all came back to him as he stared into the deep crimson eyes of the one he had sworn to kill, sworn to destroy. Team 7's day had started ordinarily enough. They'd set out after the carts carrying all types of goods, looking for signs, tracks, hints, clues, anything that could let them trace the enemy. They'd found nothing, up until a sudden odd breeze had blown ahead of them, and from their vantage point on a tree a few meters behind, they'd seen it. Two cloaked figures, with a chilling aura and a sinister presence, had appeared out of nowhere, right in front of the carts. There was something about them that just shouted trouble, and all of them were alert, like hawks, watching each move with a tentative curiosity. The carts had stopped, but no one from the civilians had made a move or called for help. Genjutsu, it was working already. One of the figures, tall with a bandage-wrapped weapon in hand, had stored all goods into scrolls in record time, and they saw it, the weapon licking some objects, almost as if devouring some unseen dish of tastes beyond human comprehension. And then it happened. The shorter, leaner man looked straight at them. Eyes piercingly sharp, and gaze cold enough to freeze their insides. He turned towards Sasuke, looking through him, glimpsing into his very soul and being, eyes morphed into an unmistakable Sharingan. And Sasuke saw red. He was drowning, all his buried hatred coming to the forefront with undeniable intensity, waves of hidden turmoil breaking free, and he was running straight towards this killer, to avenge his clan, his loved ones, because that was his goal, his only mission in life. Belatedly, he remembered the troubled and panicked voices calling his name, Sasuke. Sasuke, but his mind was made up. He wasn't going to stop. And in no time at all, his kunai were flung at the man, Itachi, with a deadly accuracy and force he'd never had to use before. But nothing worked, not his kunai, shuriken, taijutsu, ninjutsu, and he was being held. Held in a vice grip, a rough hand choking him. He struggled against the hold, trying his very best to break free, but Itachi kept staring at him, an eye contact, a bond built solely out of loathing towards each other. And maybe he whispered something like, "You're still not strong enough," or maybe he didn't. He knew then, that the torture of all those years ago was going to be repeated. That Itachi would once again trap him, his mind, in an endless cycle of recurring images filled with the death of his beloved clan. He met Itachi's gaze, steeling himself for whatever he had in store for him. But suddenly, he felt himself being pulled. And then everything went black. Naruto was feeling immensely restless as he lay on the futon in the same room where Sasuke was still unconscious, resting directly on the cold floor. When Naruto's suspicions had been proven true with the arrival of the members of the infamous Akatsuki, Naruto had wanted nothing more than to strangle Kisame and kick Itachi's ass and set him straight. Alas, that hadn't been possible, what with Sasuke running straight into battle where he was grossly outmatched. Not to mention, if he had in fact beaten Kisame and Itachi, Kakashi's questions, which were currently unvoiced, would have come down on him like a splash of cold, freezing water. Unyielding and demanding explanations. But Naruto had in fact engaged them in battle, only not alone. If it had not been for Kakashi's reliable competence while dealing with Kisame, and Sakura's precise yet distracting onslaught of weapons, Naruto might have not reached Sasuke in time to save him from yet another psychological attack under Tsukuyomi. Sasuke had been yanked by Naruto and thrown straight into a tree where he passed out from a concussion. Following which, the remaining members of Team 7 had continued being on the defensive. It had become glaringly obvious that they would have to make a retreat if they wanted to survive, but leaving the civilians there wasn't an option, not now when the enemies had been provoked into violence. Luckily for them, Itachi and Kisame weren't in the mood for a fight till death, and so shortly after the fight had begun, they discreetly did some hand sign communication and vanished. And this was exactly what was plaguing Naruto's mind right now. It wasn't supposed to go this way at all. He'd thought that coming to the past would mean he'd have the upper hand, the knowledge of the future and the power to make plans and follow them through. He didn't think that revealing his cards would need this much forethought. He could have easily sent a raise non-barrage at them, but what would his excuse be this time? Learned it from a dream. Jiraiya was his super secret sensei who taught him during the nights. It was instinctual. Nothing would work. There was a knock at the door and Sakura and Kakashi came in, holding bowls of hot ramen. Naruto smiled for them, "Smells so good." Sakura handed him a bowl and sat beside him with a tired sort of resignation. Naruto forgot that this was a tough ordeal not only for Sasuke but for Sakura too. This was her first experience on the field, and she'd witnessed a fight on a level way beyond hers. True, she didn't sustain many injuries, staying atop trees throughout the fight, but that didn't mean she didn't see the violence. Kakashi eyed him weirdly throughout the meal, and by the end of it Naruto needed to know what was bothering him. So when Sakura excused herself to take a bath, he called out, "Sensei, do you have something on your mind?" "Who?" "Me." Naruto deadpanned. "Who else is capable of having a conversation in this room? Sasuke is half dead last I checked." Kakashi chuckled humorlessly, "Yes, Naruto. There's a lot on my mind." Naruto didn't get nervous or uncomfortable. He patted the seat next to his as an invitation, which Kakashi accepted. "Ask away then." Kakashi looked at him oddly. There's something wrong about you. Well, that wasn't a question. No, it wasn't. Kakashi abruptly looked away. How did you know they were coming for us? The Akatsuki. Naruto stiffened just the slightest bit. I didn't even know who the Akatsuki were before today, sensei. He said as honestly as he could. You were pulling your punches in the fight today. Again, not a question. Kakashi's face hardened. How? You are a genin, admittedly a strong one. But even then, you should have been batted away as a fly against Itachi. However, you still held your own against him, doesn't matter if it was only for a few minutes. Naruto sighed. Sensei, if you didn't notice, I wasn't the one pulling punches, but Itachi was. Kakashi looked at him once again, a little confused this time. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I said. He wasn't trying to kill or maim or injure me. He was fighting in a detached sort of way, almost as if he was stalling for time so he could leave when his partner had had his fun with you. Kakashi considered this for a bit. He knew Itachi had been a pacifist at heart, a boy with too many scars, never to be healed entirely but only soothed. And that soothing, Itachi had found in his family, in the childish pout, in the delightful laughter, in the call of Enai-san of his younger brother. It still baffled him to no end that skillful genius who wanted nothing but peace had become a mass murderer. Kakashi got up, these thoughts rampant in his mind. He would talk more with Naruto later. Naruto watched him approach the door with steady steps, but they stopped by the exit and Kakashi turned around. You said something to Itachi, didn't you? Just before he disappeared. But he didn't wait for a response, he was already out the door. And yes, Naruto had said something to Itachi. I know why you did what you did. And I'll tell Sasuke your reasons if you don't do it yourself. The words echoed in his head. Naruto closed his eyes and escaped into the world of dreams. Much later, when Naruto woke up from his nap, he found Sasuke staring blankly at the ceiling. He silently walked up to him and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. He was there, I could have dash. Don't, Naruto stopped him gently but firmly, don't fret on it. You have much to learn. You'll get there someday. Sasuke grit his teeth and looked back at the ceiling frustratingly. He's still too strong, so out of my league. And Naruto understood what Sasuke meant, what he was feeling. It was a terrible mix of emotions of inadequacy, raw hatred, a burning need for vengeance and much more. But he wouldn't add anything to it. It was his job to pull Sasuke out of this hole he'd inevitably fall into. His job to stop this farce some from Konoha were playing with the two brothers' lives. You'll get there someday. He repeated smoothly. You're just a genin right now. You have time, but he doesn't, was the unvoiced statement in his head. Sasuke remained silent. Naruto huffed, almost exasperatedly, such a drama queen you are, Sasuke-kun, and rolled his eyes. And if Sasuke had glared at Naruto and Naruto had smiled that soft, understanding smile at him, they never mentioned it. Just don't push us away. Later, Naruto had whispered this and Sasuke had heard. Chapter 13, Training. Team 7's failure in their very first mission outside the village wasn't a secret among the rookie genins. The news had spread fast, and although they didn't know all the details, they knew that their mission had turned into an A rank, bordering on S rank, with the appearance of two highly competent rogue ninjas. Another thing that wasn't a secret was how the members of Team 7 now seemed closer. Shikamaru, while extremely observant, wasn't the only one who picked apart details among the genins. Ino saw how Sasuke's tense posture only relaxed in presence of Naruto and Sakura. Shino noticed how Naruto always had a reassuring hand on Sasuke's shoulder while in public, and Hinata realized that Sakura now confided in her teammates. None knew why or how that one fight had brought the three genin of Team 7 closer, but they knew whatever happened must have been terrible to have such an impact on them. After returning from Hidari village, Kakashi had immediately visited the Hokage to give an account of all that had occurred. Subsequently, two whole Umbu squads had been dispatched to handle the situation since a genin team wasn't remotely qualified for such a task. Team 7 had been given a week off to train and recuperate. Sure, it wasn't their first kill, yet both the Hokage and Kakashi knew what the psychological impact on Sasuke must have been on meeting his brother that he desperately wanted to kill. And so the genin of Team 7 were seen seated on the training ground floor at 6 in the morning. Hello my genin. Kakashi almost chirped as he flipped down a tree in an attempt to be dramatic. Oh look who decided to show up on time for once. Naruto commented with mock wonder painting his face. Kakashi smiled at him and then motioned for all three students to gather around him and made them sit in a circle. All three shot him skeptical looks but followed his instructions regardless. Kakashi clapped his hands, okay. So I've decided to be a decent teacher for once and hence I'll be training y'all in whatever it is you prefer to be trained in for the next week. Kakashi didn't tell them that this came from a place of deep concern for their well-being, that Kakashi didn't want them to be harmed on the field, that he felt a bit guilty about taking their training too lightly before. That he was worried of what would have happened if the two Akatsuki members had decided to be serious in their fights. Naruto understood all of his feelings regardless. He too felt guilty about not informing someone of his suspicions earlier but he knew he was being irrational. He couldn't have done anything without revealing his secrets. Sakura raised an eyebrow, really? Anything? Kakashi hummed, yes, anything. Alright then Sakura began once again, I've decided. Teach me genjutsu for the next week. I'm learning medical ninjutsu from Mrs. Misu already so adding genjutsu would be beneficial for distracting enemies while I tend to wounds if need be. That's smart, Naruto agreed. Yes, so now you're sorted, why don't you go next Sasuke? Everyone's attention turned to Sasuke who till then had been silently following the conversation. He appeared to be giving it a thought and so they remained quiet. He started, I guess I'll go with genjutsu too. But more on the offensive side, invasive in nature, helpful for offense instead of subtle illusion for tricking the senses of the opponent. Kakashi gave him a thumbs up, sounds good. And now you he looked at Naruto, what would you like to train in? Honestly, Naruto didn't have an answer. All of them knew that Naruto's taijutsu was amazing, his ninjutsu repertoire was huge, though he hadn't even shown them a quarter of it yet, and he could break out of the most powerful of genjutsus. He couldn't perform genjutsu very well but he wasn't bad at it. Well, it was his only skill that lacked a bit so he sighed, I'll go with genjutsu too. Well that certainly makes things much easier. The three genins gave him smiles and he smiled back. And so the hustle began. The next week, Team 7 practiced every day from morning till evening. They obviously worked on their endurance, speed, and chakra control through tree hopping and climbing. But they mostly focused on genjutsu. While Sakura mastered most of the genjutsus Kakashi taught her easily, Naruto struggled a little to learn his. It wasn't that Naruto's chakra control was bad or his aptitude for genjutsu was abysmal, he just couldn't force out that tiny an amount of chakra for the subtle genjutsus when his reserves were so huge. And apparently, Kakashi understood this too because on the second day of training, he handed Naruto a book filled with large-scale genjutsus. Scenery changes coupled with sensory overloading. Naruto thoroughly enjoyed learning those. Sasuke, on the other hand, learned jutsus that could psychologically attack his opponents. Though he was a little discouraged that he didn't have his Sharingan to amplify it yet, he learned genjutsus at an astonishing speed. By the end of the week, all three members of Team 7 had made sufficient improvement in genjutsu that they could trap Kakashi in their illusions for at least a minute. They still had a long way to go before they could dominate a battle with genjutsu alone but it was a very good start. The week of training also helped Sasuke forget about his encounter with Itachi somewhat and so Team 7 began with their D-rank missions again. And if Naruto had seemed just a tad bit happier seeing the start of Sasuke's healing, no one seemed to notice it. Months had passed since the infamous Hidori mission. All the rookie genins had at one point in the last 4 months been outside the village for a mission or two and no catastrophic rank increase had occurred for any of them. They had recently made it a point to start training together as teams and so Kiba was talking Naruto's ears off as they walked to Training Ground 11, the decided meeting spot for their collective spars. And then Hinata finally told Kurane-sensei about her interest in medical ninjutsu and Shino is working on this weird insect jutsu it's so creepy man I tell you and then Akamaru has this new obsession with a dog treat that only comes through a merchant caravan at the end of each month. The most surprising fact was that Naruto was actually listening and paying attention to Kiba. They'd been on good terms in his last life but he'd never actually known him so well as he did now. Realizing something, he suddenly asked, where's Shikamaru? He was supposed to meet up with us on the last street right? Kiba tried to recollect whether this was true or not. Right. He wasn't there though. He paused, and as if sharing a big secret, he leaned towards Naruto and spoke, I don't think he'll come though. Ino has been complaining to Hinata about how he never shows up for training. Lazy guy that Nara. Naruto chuckled, lazy, indeed. But inwardly, Naruto wasn't all that amused. You know what, Kiba? I think I forgot something important at home. My equipment belt and he pointed at his waist devoid of any belts, but of course that was intentional. He didn't need all his weapons for a taijutsu spar. I better go get them. And he started running in the opposite direction. Kiba waved at him confusedly, yeah, bye man. He shook his head and continued on his way. Shikamaru was in a light sleep, lying on his bed in his room. He hadn't wanted to do some rigorous training with his teammates and peers, and hence he'd decided to stay home the whole day instead. He hadn't expected Naruto to show up unannounced at his door, shouting for him to come out. Get out here, Shikamaru Nara, right now. Naruto's voice had successfully woken him up and had sent Yoshino running to Shikamaru's room to get him to answer his friend's call at the door. Shikamaru had reluctantly gotten up, and upon seeing Naruto standing in his front yard, hands folded and expression stern, he'd felt a nervous knot in his stomach. Hello Naruto, he smiled lazily at him to defuse some tension, what brings you here? Naruto smiled at him in a way that didn't reassure Shikamaru at all. Care to explain why you are not at training ground 11 right now? I was sleeping. And he really didn't want to sound as sheepish as he did. Sleeping huh? How is that going to help you in the Chunin exams? Shikamaru's eyes widened at that. What do you mean? Naruto waved a lazy hand at him, an invitation to join him on a walk around the compound. What I mean is that the Chunin exams will be held soon, and if I know anything about our senseis, it is that they believe in us to the point of letting us participate in the exams even though we're rookies. Shikamaru knew Naruto was right. Asuma-sensei had indeed shown deep faith in his team on various missions. Hell, he knew that Asuma would enter them just so they could get experience from the exams. What a drag. So, Naruto started once again, you'll persuade your enemy to go against you in a who falls asleep first wins contest. Shikamaru shot him a dirty look. I don't like what you're doing. Oh? What am I doing? Naruto tilted his head innocently, and it would have been damn convincing if it wasn't for the telltale signs of a smirk around his mouth. This convincing me do hard work and all? Naruto's face turned serious again. Look Shikamaru, I can't force you to do anything, alright? I don't even want to. It's just that you need to realize that you're a shinobi of the village now, the civilians and your teammates depend on you. I know you'd rather nap and play shogi all day, but I don't ever want you to regret not honing your skills when you had the chance to. At this, Naruto's face broke into a grin again. Yeah, I'm done with the lecture mode. I gotta go though, so bye Shika. And he hopped off the wall and sprinted away. Shikamaru kept standing there, mulling over the things Naruto had told him. He understood somewhat. Because no matter what he said, he did care a lot for his team, and as a part of that team, he did have his share of responsibilities. Later that day, when he entered the training ground, he was met with Ino's happy beam and Choji's mellow smile. And while he got thoroughly beaten by Naruto, seeing that slightly proud smile on the blonde's face aimed solely at him, made all the struggle worth it. And if he got the chance to analyze the fighting styles of his fellow genin for the upcoming Chunin exams, he didn't tell a soul about it. Chapter 14, The Written Exam. Spontaneity was like second nature for Naruto. His on-the-spot strategic thinking had gotten him out of tough situations countless number of times. But going into the Chunin exams, uncertain of what to do with his knowledge of the invasion by Orochimaru was like a particularly annoying itch begging to be scratched. But he just didn't know what to do. So he didn't think about it. Instead, he decided that he would just react to the actions taken. He wasn't even certain that Orochimaru would attack, what with the butterfly effect and all. Lost in thought, he didn't realize that two certain people had arrived beside him until one said, "Oh, for real Naruto, stop daydreaming. We've to give our exams right now." He turned towards Sakura, out of his inner musings. "Yes, good morning Sakura. I'm fine, thanks for asking." Sakura huffed, Oh shut up dash. Then she walked a little so she was standing between Naruto and Sasuke and rested her arms on their shoulders. So boys, we need to be in focus mode right now. Scoping out potential competition is our top priority. She was giving an intense stare to anyone who dared look her way. Naruto was trying his best not to laugh while he nodded sharply, aye Captain. On it. And he wriggled out of her hold and started running into the building where the written portion of the exams would be held. Now with her hand still wrapped around Sasuke and Naruto gone, things got awkward. Sasuke coughed, was definitely faking it, Sakura, and he pointed towards her arm. Sakura, though, just gave him a look that seemed suspiciously like a smirk and removed her arm from over his shoulder. Let's get going. Don't want Naruto to scare everyone already. Sasuke nodded because he could definitely imagine Naruto talking amiably with the other genin while casually mentioning his ability to form an army of clones to murder them. They went up 2 floors and heard chaos ensuing in the corridor. While walking towards the crowd, a sensation, very brief, passed over them. A thin fog settling into their minds and they immediately recognized a Genjutsu. With all their training in the discipline, they easily broke out of it and smirked at each other. Scanning through the group of people, they saw Naruto chatting with 3 genins. A girl with 2 buns, a regal-looking boy with Byakugan, and another odd fellow wearing weight was that a green spandex suit. They rushed towards them. Youth shines brightly in you Naruto-san. If I could I would shed tears of pride because of your astute assessment of the surroundings. How youthful it is that you guessed. The boy with the awful bowl cut trailed off on noticing Sakura. Seeing the boy's distracted expression, Naruto turned and grinned at the 2. Yo! Look at these wonderful people I met. He pointed at the other 3. He pulled Sasuke and Sakura towards him so the 6 were now huddled in a circle. This is Tenten, the girl gave them a smile, this is Neji, a nod of acknowledgement which they returned, and, this is Rock Lee. Rock Lee, in all his unmatched enthusiasm bowed stiffly and looked intensely at Sakura. Youthful lady, you've stolen my heart. Please be my girlfriend for my affections are only for you. Sakura looked at Naruto for help who just shrugged and then she turned to Sasuke who was sporting an oddly cold look on his face. Lee, I will, ha ha ha. She just laughed awkwardly praying for an escape. And Tenten, having heard her plea for help, came to her rescue. She hit Lee hard on his head, you idiot, this isn't how you ask girls out. You don't even know her yet. Rock Lee looked confused and was about to go into another passionate tirade when. Guys, I think we should go to the classroom now. We don't have much time left, Naruto said, ever the voice of reason these days. They all agreed. Outside the class, a quick, don't die okay? Was all the encouragement Team 7 received from their sensei and then they went in. Immediately, Naruto was hit by a strong sense of nostalgia. He was on guard already, getting ready for anything Kabuto might do this time around. Look. They're here. They heard Kiba shouting and waving from the other side of the room. While everyone went towards Kiba and the rest of the rookies, Neji stayed behind. Glancing behind his shoulder, Naruto frowned at seeing the impassive look on Neji's face. He backtracked towards him. So what's up with you? That's none of your business Naruto-san. Naruto grinned at the uptight Hyuga. Of course it is. I'm Hinata's dash, and he didn't miss the way Neji's face hardened at that, friend and so by extension everyone in her clan and my friend. Except of course those boring elders. Neji glared at him, it would be wise for you to respect my clan elders and not poke your nose where it doesn't belong. Naruto sighed dramatically, oh shit man, you're so intense. Neji kept glaring at him. Okay, I'll leave you alone. Naruto raised his hands in surrender and went away leaving the sulking Hyuga to his own devices. He didn't think that he'd be able to break through the boy in one conversation anyway. Shortly after, a tall, well-built man with an imposing figure bursted through the door with his entourage of Chunins. How weird, Naruto thought, Kabuto didn't show his weird cards to us this time. Get to your seats right now you stupid brats. The man ordered and everyone did as they were told lest they face the wrath of this scary man. The Jounin banged his hands on the table, to intimidate the wannabe Chunins further though Naruto just rolled his eyes at that. I am Ibiki Marino, the proctor of this part of the Chunin exams. You all will answer 9 questions in 30 minutes. If anyone is caught cheating thrice, the genin and their whole team will be disqualified. If a genin scores 0 points, the whole team will be disqualified. At the end of the 30 minutes, I'll ask y'all the last question, which will be for 10 whole points. That's it. He motioned to the genin helpers and they all distributed the question papers to the genins. Begin. The moment the genins looked at the questions, most went pale. They realized that this test won't be a walk in the park. From detailed chakra theory to history of the warring era, everything was asked in those 9 questions. The ones unfortunate and obvious enough while cheating were caught rapidly, and one after the other teams were shown the exit. Meanwhile, Sakura, Shikamaru and Sasuke used their natural intellect and grasp over theory to fill in the answers. The other rookies used whatever tricks they had up their sleeves to use their information-gathering skills for cheating. Naruto, meanwhile, was busy observing the rest of the genins. He saw the Kusanin, not taken over by the snake-loving traitor yet, and the Otonin trying to be as inconspicuous while cheating. His eyes landed on oh shit. That's Gaara. Only this Gaara wasn't as grounded and sane like the one he had known for so long. And the best part was that Naruto had completely forgotten about Gaara and his obsession with killing. He sighed, twirling his pencil, when he noticed Ibiki looking at him weirdly. He raised an eyebrow at him and Ibiki continued staring. Naruto winked at him this time and enjoyed seeing the gruff TNI department subhead looking bewildered for just a fraction of a second. With just a minute to go, Naruto finally filled in all the answers, much to the surprise of Hinata sitting beside him. Time is up. And now, Ibiki chuckled darkly, comes the fun part. You all have a choice to take the next question or not. Either you say yes and then answer the 10th question, or say no and walk out. Some random Chunin hopeful raised her hand, to which Naruto reacted by saying, just wait. There's some twist waiting for us. It's not as straightforward as you might think it is. Ibiki, not really that impressed, nodded in agreement. Yes. That's right. If you say yes and then answer the question incorrectly, you and your whole team will never be able to become Chunins again. Several cries of indignation and anger broke out. How is that fair? That's just messed up. Who in Kami's name are you to decide that? Were some of the comments Naruto heard. He chuckled softly. Oh, how naive were these genin. Shut up, you idiots. Came Ibiki's booming voice. I prepared this exam and whatever I say goes. If you have problem, the door is open. Walk out. When slowly but surely everyone stopped the useless chatter, Ibiki asked, so who wishes to leave? A few hesitant hands flew up and a few teams with grumbling genins exited the classroom. Ibiki made eye contact with the ones remaining, piercing his gaze through their very being. This is your last chance to leave. After this, it's do or die. From the corner of his eye, Naruto could see Sakura and Koji having a mental debate with their own selves and decided not to intervene. They had to make the choice themselves. It was a test of their mental fortitude. Instead, he turned towards Shikamaru, who, coincidentally, was looking at him as well. Naruto mouthed ready to kick some ass, towards him, and Shikamaru smirked slightly. He mouthed back and always and got a jerky thumbs up from Naruto and felt his little doubt about the final question fly away. Another minute passed and no one raised their hands, much to the pride of Naruto. All the rookies had grown so much through their joint training sessions. It was amazing yet humbling. Fine then. You all just need to answer one question. Everyone nodded resolutely. Ibiki's face broke into a grin, and a few genins shuddered. But before that, I just have to tell you one thing. You all have passed. Obviously, the genins were confused, and voicing their confusion resulted in Ibiki giving them rundown about psychological games, deception, torture, making difficult choices, blah blah blah. And how that all tied up with this test. At the end of it, all the genins were just happy to have somehow made it through the exams. Their peace of mind didn't last for long, because out of nowhere a flying Kunoichi zipped through the window and struck the ceiling. With it, came in the weirdly dressed Kunoichi with purple hair. Amarino dash, she said, licking her lips slightly, you've left a large bunch this time for me. Ibiki shrugged, they're just a tough crop of genin. The Kunoichi hummed and then suddenly struck a dramatic pose, I am Anko Mitarashi, your proctor for the second part of the Chunin exams. She stopped then waiting for some type of response. When no one said anything and things started to get awkward, Naruto spoke up uncertainly. Nice to meet you Anko. A slightly manic gleam crossed through Anko's eyes, definitely nice to meet y'all too. She then clapped her hands. Come on then. Meet me outside ground 44 in 10 minutes. And remember, and paused looking extremely happy, the team who comes last, dies. And with that she was out the window again. All the genin had only one thought in their minds as they started towards the ground. Konoha has the weirdest bunch of jounins. They really weren't wrong at all. Chapter 15, Orochimaru and Kabuto. Naruto was tense and alert from the moment Team 7 entered the Forest of Death for the second part of the Chunin exams. He was completely anticipating an attack from Orochimaru this time around too. But Naruto unfortunately forgot to take into consideration one tiny detail, and that was Sasuke didn't have the Sharingan yet. They were halfway into the forest, the peak of the tower appearing clearly now, just a few kilometers away. The only sound made as the three genin of Team 7 traveled was the light tapping of their feet. American Samoa. They hopped from one tree to the next. Naruto had already sent out more than a dozen clones to scout ahead, taking no chances. He wasn't going to allow any team to get a jump on them with a prepared ambush or a laid trap. Sakura had thrown around a small-scale genjutsu around them. It played with the senses of anyone who looked directly at them, so instead of seeing three genin, they'd only see three monkeys jumping from tree to tree. It took a lot of effort to maintain, but it was worth it. Suddenly, Sasuke stopped, waving a hand at the other two to come close to him. But he didn't have to say what he'd noticed because Naruto and Sakura already knew what it was. A genin team was approaching them. And they couldn't see them, so they were heading straight towards Team 7. The three spread out, taking their individual stances, preparing for the upcoming battle. Naruto wasn't prepared though, to see the Kusa Kunoichi Orochimaru had previously taken over to show up with her two teammates. Immediately, Naruto spoke in his mind, urging Kurama to wake up. I was sleeping, you dumbass. What problem do you have now? Can't even handle a bunch of genins. Keeping his face carefully blank on the outside, Naruto replied internally. Listen Kurama, this is very important. I need you to tell me whether that Kunoichi, currently making her way to us, is Orochimaru or not. Kurama didn't argue or complain, sensing how serious Naruto was. Give me a minute. And he got to work. Using his innate ability to sense chakra, he worked at releasing some of his own through Naruto's body, though nothing as drastic as the Kyuubi chakra mode. Little wisps of orange chakra flew past Naruto and circled briefly around the Kunoichi, now only a few meters away from Team 7, and returned back to Naruto's body. Kurama spoke up immediately. No, there's no trace of that bastard's chakra. It's just the girl. Feeling very confused, Naruto thanked Kurama and focused on the three figures now just ahead of him. He didn't have time to process what this meant because the three Kusa genins started a head-on attack at them after realizing that they weren't monkeys after all. There was no monologuing, no witty quips, just straight-up fighting. The boy with shaggy black hair was manipulating the grass in the forest somehow. Naruto guessed it was just some earth jutsu because nobody except Tenzo could actually come close to manipulating plants. Nevertheless, the abundance of creepers on the ground made for excellent capture weapons, and soon Naruto found his legs encircled with them. Running a wind chakra-infused kunai through the plants, he jumped out of the way of another attack. From the corner of his eye, he could see Sasuke engaging the Kunoichi, who seemed to be clutching her head, babbling some nonsense. Naruto smirked. Sasuke's genjutsu really fucked with the opponent's mind. Not wanting to stretch the fight too much, Naruto sent blasts of wind at the boy, who used a mud wall as a shield. Much to the Kusa genin's horror, not only did the wind blasts completely decimate the wall but also hit him with such a force that he was sent flying away till his back collided with a tree trunk. Naruto really ought to tone down his attacks. The genin now out of the way, Naruto turned to Sakura, to give assistance if necessary. As it turned out, it wasn't required at all because Sakura was dusting her hands, having captured her opponent within a dome wall after confusing him with different genjutsu. The two smiled playfully at each other, and Sasuke joined them, throwing the heaven scroll they required at Naruto. Catching the item, Naruto quickly sealed it on a piece of paper he safely tucked in his kunao pouch. He noticed a few burns around Sasuke's mouth and the singed clothing of the unconscious Kunoichi and knew that Sasuke's battle had definitely ended with a few fireballs. That was surprisingly easy, wasn't it? Sakura asked, looking around for more threats as if this whole thing had just been an elaborate ruse to ultimately throw some more difficult, deadlier foes at them. Sasuke muttered, yeah, these three didn't have any attack plan except trying to separate us, which didn't work out well, considering they didn't even know our personal skills. That girl had no defense against my genjutsu. And no teammate to break her out of it. Sakura nodded, yeah, they'd have had a better chance if they'd just stuck together. Naruto chuckled, now don't go all analytical mode already. We've to cover a lot of ground. Let's get moving again. Just like many other times, Sasuke and Sakura followed his lead. Starting their journey towards the tower again, one thing bugged Naruto's mind. He had noticed something the other two hadn't. And that was the presence of Kabuto where they'd fought. Naruto knew that the accomplice of Konoha's most immediate threat had been lurking in the shadows, spying on them. He also knew that Kabuto had disappeared just as their fight had gotten over. He just didn't know why. It was all very odd, first Kabuto not playing his part of a friendly older genin who was incompetent, then Orochimaru not showing up in this round and now Kabuto spying on them. What is their plan? Uneventfully, Team 7 reached the tower by nightfall, a little exhausted but extremely happy to have cleared the round. After Iruka-sensei's explanations and his proud nod accompanied with a happy congratulations, the three made their way into the main hall of the tower. There, seated on the chairs were Gaara, Temari and Kankuro. The Sand siblings, Sasuke recalled, eyeing the redhead suspiciously. He'd felt that boy's killing intent in the first exam. Sasuke felt someone nudge him and turned to see Sakura staring at him worriedly. Stay away from him, all right? She asked softly, my instincts tell me he spells trouble. Sasuke rolled his eyes, fine, whatever. Naruto, who was listening in, didn't begrudge them. He understood why Sakura would not want Sasuke to associate with Gaara. The boy was really drowning in bloodlust right now. Later, Naruto thought, later I'll deal with Gaara. Right now, I've to wait for Kabuto and find out what's going on. It wasn't until late next night that Kabuto's team made it to the tower. Luckily for Naruto, he was up and aware of their entrance. Kabuto's two teammates hurried upstairs, leaving the bespectacled genin in the empty hall. Naruto was hiding under the stairs, masking his chakra and holding his breath. His skills in stealth really paid off when the Chunin guard by the door stepped inside, skin shedding slowly as the generic face of the guard morphed into an overly familiar pale visage. Naruto didn't make any noise even as he restrained himself from not going and killing the man right then and there. He knew the resulting battle would be large-scale and would definitely out his secrets. He knew he would need Kurama's assistance in battling Orochimaru, and he couldn't do that with an audience which was bound to show up if they fought right now. He had to wait for a more suitable opportunity. A hiss echoed in the hall, followed by slow, properly enunciated words, "Did you find anyone, my dear Kabuto?" Kabuto fixed his glasses and spoke, "Yes, I did, my lord. But most of these genin are pathetic at best. They won't be of any use to you. But the intel we received from Sasori, about how that Jinchuriki Naruto went toe-to-toe against Itachi, seems to have some valid basis. I saw him fight only a genin, but his attacks were very powerful and it seemed as if he was actually holding back." Orochimaru hummed, deep in thought. A few moments later, he licked his lips, "That's interesting. I thought Sensei would not train the boy what with his morals to not turn children into weapons. Perhaps I was wrong. Seems like this boy has been trained well already." Kabuto nodded his head in agreement. Orochimaru sat on a chair, "And the Uchiha? Is he any good?" "He's a strong genin too, and can already utilize genjutsu to best his opponents. He's certainly an Uchiha in that regard. Only if he'd have the Sharingan, he'd be the perfect host for you." Orochimaru chuckled, "Oh, naive Kabuto, who says he can't be molded into perfection? I know a thing or two about how the Sharingan is activated. I could force those red eyes out of the boy. We have 3 years after all." He sighed a little, looking at Kabuto again, "but it is not a certainty that he'd develop the Sharingan. Too many holes in the plan if we take the boy. This Uzumaki though? Now that's more exciting. His vitality is another bonus. Kabuto looked a little uncertain then. But what about the Baijuya sealed inside the boy? Can you even perform your jutsu on him? He asked hesitantly. Orochimaru got up, smiling to himself he replied. It'll be no problem at all. Just have to train the boy a bit. He paused, looking at the ring on his hand. Just a little help from my former colleagues and the Baijuya won't be hindrance after that. Understanding dawned on Kabuto's face and he smiled at Orochimaru. Then that's the plan. Orochimaru nodded and licked his lips again. Quit the exam now Kabuto, and keep an eye on that Uzumaki. Got it. Orochimaru walked to the door, peering out to see if anyone was there. When he saw no one, he opened the door but before walking away he passed on one single order to Kabuto. Meet me outside the village gates 2 days before the final round. We're killing the Kazekage. And then he was gone, silent as the wind, mixing with the shadows and slipping past the security of Konoha like it was nothing. As Naruto made his way to his assigned room, his mind recalled what he'd just heard. It all made sense now. Kabuto was here to scout out potential hosts for Orochimaru, from any village and not to report on solely Sasuke's battle prowess to Orochimaru. Naruto knew their plan, knew that he was their main target and despite the implications, he couldn't help but find that amusing. Good luck making me your vessel you snake lover. Lying on his bed with his eyes closed, only one thought a promise lingered in his mind. I'm going to kill you Orochimaru before you can even touch the Kazekage. Chapter 16, Preliminaries. It was almost evening of the third day by the time all the qualified participants assembled in the big hall. The indoors were filled with chatter and a constant buzz of excited conversation. Naruto noticed with pleasant surprise that all of the Konoha 12 had passed the second round once again. With all the things not going the way they were supposed to, Naruto was convinced that this detail would change too. Team 10 was standing next to them and Naruto smiled upon seeing Shikamaru who looked disheveled and tired but overall uninjured. The Hokage stood up at a makeshift podium and silenced the way too energetic genin. There were a lot of indignant protests when the Hokage informed them about the preliminaries but ultimately they all had to accept it. Slots turned on the big screen display and pairs were drawn for the upcoming matches. Before walking to their assigned spots atop the first floor, Naruto nudged Sasuke in friendly affection, Sasuke. The Uchiha looked at the blonde and hummed. Naruto smirked at him, kick ass, alright. Sasuke's face broke into a small smile and he nodded, knowing that Naruto was referring to his fight. His match was first after all. Sasuke, as expected, kicked ass. It was no surprise really. His progress was phenomenal in the last few months and he was a diligent student. Add to that his innate talent for shinobi arts and his unwavering determination, Yoroi Akita was no match for the boy. Everything went more or less the same as last time, Naruto observed. Until the fourth match. Sakura walked up to the arena confidently. She'd come far, and she was sure she could win this if she applied all her training properly. Opposite her, Ino stood with her hands on her hips, a determined expression her face. Ready to lose for it? Ino asked, an unsaid challenge hidden behind the words. Sakura grinned, no, but you definitely should be. I won't be around to comfort you when you cry after losing. Ino gritted her teeth, you want to say that again forward girl. Now, the two girls had definitely reconciled what with the training sessions their teams were adamant on having. Hell, they'd even become spar buddies and tentative friends after Sakura had confessed that she missed Ino's company and Ino had reciprocated the feelings. So all of this trash talking was just for show. The two found immense pleasure in making their friends roll their eyes in exasperation. Hey, the tired proctor, spoke up, are you two done already? Sakura turned her sheepish gaze at him, yeah, sorry, yeah. He moved his hand in a chopping motion and shouted an unenthusiastic begin. The rookies watched with no small amount of awe as the two kunoichi battled it out. Instead of trying to use her mind jutsu, Ino went for a frontal assault and even though Sakura was training to be a medic nin, she didn't succumb to the attacks. She was on the defensive, yes, but she was taking no injuries. The attacks weren't big or brutal, but they were sharp and precise and with each block, Sakura felt her arms get numb from the concentrated pain. But she had sparred enough with Ino to know that Ino had greater stamina than her but lesser battle awareness. So while she ducked out of another punch, she discreetly made a hand sign which only a select few from the stands could see, and when she bent away from a kick, she completed the sequence and released chakra. Ino faltered in her steps and felt a shiver on her skin. It was momentary, but before she could analyze it further, Sakura was in front of her with a raised leg to land a painful kick. Ino jumped out of the way, startled that Sakura would go on the offensive. But as soon as she landed again, she felt immense pain on her side where there had been an impact. Her body moved without thinking and she raised her leg in a blind kick behind. Fortunately, it landed on Sakura's back with much force that the girl went tumbling down. Ino turned her head again, and saw there was no one at the place Sakura had tried kicking her from. She knew what had happened. It was likely that the previous kick had been an illusion to distract her and Sakura had used it to her advantage to land a hit on her. And her efforts hadn't gone in vain. Ino's whole right side was positively begging for rest, begging to be left stationary. Ino bit her lip, she couldn't give up. No, it just won't do. Sakura had regained composure and was now eyeing Ino like a hawk, but Ino knew that this moment of inaction won't last long. She needed a strategy. Sakura watched with bated breath as Ino's face morphed with resolution and she raised her hands in her signature triangle. Sakura felt confused as to why the blonde would use mind control when Sakura could easily dodge it. She started moving nonetheless, running in random ways, not standing in the same spot for longer than a second. Her eyes were still on Ino, who was following her movements with her hands, ready to release her jutsu. The aiming went on for another minute before Ino grunted in frustration and finally shouted out her jutsu. Sakura didn't stop till she saw Ino's body go limp, eyes shut and knees wobble. She felt a little disappointment at how easy it was to win, because she really had won. Ino failed to trap her and will be knocked out for quite some time. She turned towards the proctor then, face already delivering her question. So I won. But before Hate could even acknowledge her question, let alone answer it, she felt a severe attack on her mental barriers, and something struck into her mind. Her consciousness was thrown to the sidelines and she saw as her control of her body was taken over by the intruder, Ino. Ino had never used her jutsu in the first place. It was all an act, Sakura realized. She cursed herself for not realizing it sooner. But in her defense, none of the audience had come to that conclusion either. Ino just had a hidden talent for acting. Nevertheless, that moment of turning her attention to the proctor had created an opportunity for Ino to finally use mind control on her, and it had worked. Sakura felt thoughts not of her own making bombard in her mind. Yield. Give up. Surrender. Sakura was frozen as a bystander while Ino manipulated her mind. Sakura knew that it won't be long before those words came out of her own mouth under Ino's influence. She couldn't let it happen though, not at all. So even as she felt like a stranger in her own body, she pushed her own thoughts into her mind. Memories of her training, the bleeding knees, the sore muscles, the rough, scratched hands all being fed to her brain altogether. She was effectively shouting inside her head and Ino felt jolts pushing her back, some invisible force coming through cracks and trying to throw her out. Ino started focusing, and she only got out Iserdesh before a yell of no reverberated in her own mind. Sakura was fighting back and Ino's hold on the justa was slipping. Capitalizing on the upper hand, Sakura pushed, with more vigor, more influence, and before Ino knew it she was thrown out of Sakura's body and into her own. Her jutsu always left her in a momentary state of disorientation and she stood up on unsteady feet. But she didn't get time to collect her bearings because a hard punch connected with her stomach and she wheezed in pain. The attack didn't stop there. Sakura was relentless, she was using every opening to punch, kick, hit, shove her. Ino tried blocking but it was futile. Sakura's eyes held a different type of determination. She wanted to prove herself and no one could stand in her way. Ino landed on the ground with a thud and fought to stay conscious. The sting and pain were overwhelming her and her head was throbbing furiously. She had never experienced resistance when she used her justa before, so it was messing up her head. I yield. She rasped out at last. Giving up didn't feel as bad as she thought it would. It was a practical choice, she couldn't go on. Her injuries would only get worse. And she didn't know medical ninjutsu, unlike Sakura whom she knew had healed her back somewhere during the fight. Hayate sighed, winner is Sakura Harino. Sakura smiled and bent down, huffing. Ino, you. She released a breath, you're amazing. That kick, Okami, I swear I heard my bones break. From her place on the ground, Ino grinned. Of course I do. The barks in my training ground aren't all dented because of nothing. She made to sit up and with the pink-haired girl's help, she succeeded. Besides, you pack a mean punch. My arms are positively broken right now. Sakura laughed happily, hands glowing a calming green, and she hovered them over Ino's arms. Well, that just means the trees will now get assaulted by your hands and not legs, right? Ino rolled her eyes, yeah. More training, here I come. Hayate coughed and the two turned to look at him, are you two done already? He repeated, completely irked by the two genin. Supporting Ino with her arm, the two moved out of the way, talking about their fight and moves. Naruto couldn't help but feel extremely elated. Naruto had to muffle a snort as he remembered how he'd defeated Kiba the last time. Much to his pleasure, there were no farts involved in this victory of his. He'd simply overpowered Kiba with shadow clones and niche wind jutsus. He rolled his eyes in annoyance as he heard Neji giving his overused destiny speech to Hinata. And saw the fight go down similarly like the last time. He even shouted out verbal motivation towards Hinata and wisely whispered profanities for the Hyuga prodigy, which Sasuke caught anyway and laughed softly at. Naruto had stopped paying attention to the fights till a huge bang engaged his entertainment-seeking instincts. Rock Lee had dropped his weights like a total badass, and Naruto remembered how awestruck he'd been when he'd first seen the sight. Naruto observed the remaining of the battle with a sense of familiarity. The end grew closer and he waited for the almost predetermined events to unfold. And they did. Even after using the inner gates, Rock Lee failed to beat Gaara. And he stood stubbornly refusing to give up. A wave of sand rushed towards him, intent on wrapping Rock Lee in its deadly embrace. But before the sand could even close in on him, three Kunao neatly sliced through the sand's path, diverting their trajectory to go around Lee. Everyone, including Gaara, turned towards the source of the intervention and saw Naruto looking blankly at the redhead. Don't you think it's enough, Hayate-san? The fight should end before anyone gets the opportunity to cause permanent damage to the other. And like a fog had been lifted, several Jounin jumped down, restraining Gaara and supporting Lee. Guy shot Naruto a grateful look and Naruto nodded at him. Alright, Hayate coughed, this match is over. The winner is Gaara. The murderous manner in which Gaara looked at him didn't bother Naruto. He just waved at the grumpy, slightly maniacal sand lover and smiled brightly. You know, Desh, Sasuke whispered to him, if you die by that guy's hands, I'm not attending your funeral. Naruto placed his head on his folded arms atop the rail. Oh Sasuke, if I go down, you're going down with me. Sakura smacked him on his head, none of you is dying. And now hurry up, we've to get our final match UPS. Yes, Mom. The two boys said in unison. Sakura smiled inwardly. Yeah, no, not happening. Naruto looked at Ebisu, I refuse to be this man's student. Ebisu sputtered, you insolent brat. How ungrateful can you possibly be? I went out dash. Ma, Ebisu, Kakashi cut in, smiling at the man, it's alright. If Naruto doesn't want you to teach him, he'll just have to train on his own. Naruto laughed, Sensei, if you think you're being all smart by saying that, just let me tell you, Naruto sat on the window pane of the hospital, I've already found a teacher. He hopped off, leaving behind a bewildered Ebisu and a chuckling Kakashi. Bad. Ebisu said, bad boy influenced Hokage's grandson. Naruto is very bad. Kakashi looked at him, go away. Ebisu did just that. Sounds of perverted giggles weren't difficult for Naruto to come across once he entered Konoha's best hot spring. Sticking behind the branches of a tree was the white mane of the one and only, Jiraiya of the Sannin. Something twisted in Naruto's stomach, watching his master alive and well, in all his shameless glory. He pushed aside those feelings. This was a happy moment. He didn't want to ruin it with memories of the past which were better left forgotten. He sneakily climbed up the tree and watched with amusement as Jiraiya continued scribbling in his little notebook, peeping on the women all the while. He took a deep breath and shouted. Oi! What are you doing, you pervert? Jiraiya yelped and fell on his ass. Chapter 17, Preparations. Jiraiya was a good man. He was eccentric, yes, sometimes outwardly perverted, a little obnoxious but still good. However, as he stood wincing from the pain that his bottom was enduring from the fall, he couldn't help but wonder if murder counted as something good or not. Because the blonde kid standing in front of him had not only disrupted his research work but had also startled him, and the women enjoying in the hot spring. He knew he'd be banned from this establishment now. Brat! Why did you do that? He asked furiously, trying to intimidate the genin. Naruto smiled innocently. What? I was just calling you out, old guy. Peeping is bad manners, don't you know? Jiraiya wasn't buying his act though. You did it on purpose. I can see it. Your eyes are glinting like a madman. Naruto blinked and with a carefully blank expression said, yeah, well, it doesn't matter. You were blatantly violating those women's privacy. I was obviously not going to let it slide. Jiraiya shot Naruto a dirty look but then noticed Naruto's forehead protector. You're a ninja, huh? Well, do you know who I am? Instead of receiving a negative answer like he'd expected, Naruto nodded. Yeah, I do, and don't you dare do your little dance routine with that awful monologue, Jiraiya of the Sunin. Jiraiya sputtered, how dare you? It is an awesome, amazing, fabulous introduction. Naruto rolled his eyes at him. Sure, old man. Anyway, I need to ask you something. Jiraiya, of course, knew who Naruto was. How could he not? The bright blonde hair and shining blue eyes so like his former student were very noticeable. Though admittedly, Jiraiya hadn't expected Naruto to have such a personality. He almost seemed smart. Well, I won't answer any questions. You've ruined my day. The Sunin crossed his arms and sat down, leaning against the wall that separated the entrance from the women's hot springs. Naruto plopped beside him. So what is this? Revenge? Grow up, old man. Jiraiya's urge to murder him arose again. I don't like you. Naruto smiled, the feelings are mutual. Jiraiya chuckled, and despite how annoying he thought the blonde was, he couldn't help but feel a fondness for him. Damn that Minato. Whatever. He said, failing to sound unaffected, ask then. I'll decide whether to reply or not. Naruto shrugged, fair enough. So, will you train me? Jiraiya felt slightly surprised at that. Now, from the moment he'd entered the village, he knew he was going to meet and maybe train Naruto before leaving again. It'd been way too long since he'd left all his responsibilities as Naruto's godfather, and though he may never make up for it, he was willing to try. But he hadn't expected Naruto himself to ask that of him. Luckily for him, Naruto had no clue that Jiraiya was his godfather. If only Jiraiya knew. Oh? And why would I do that? He asked instead. Naruto turned towards him. If you don't, oh great Sunin, I will go to the Hokage and tell him about all your little escapades and personally make sure that you're never let into any hot spring ever again as long as you're in Konoha. Naruto turned again. No pressure though, you can say no. Jiraiya didn't know whether to feel angry, impressed or threatened. In the end, he settled with smacking Naruto on the head. You're a bold one, huh? Naruto got up. Oh, you haven't seen half of it yet. Jiraiya stood up too, his Geta sandals clacking on the stony ground. You're qualified for the finals then. Naruto didn't bother asking Jiraiya how he knew this. The Sunin wasn't a spymaster just for namesake. Yeah. And I need your help to win the finals. Well, that was a lie. Naruto just needed to sign the Toad contract again. But Jiraiya didn't need to know that. Jiraiya grinned, under my tutelage, you'll definitely reach your goal. I'm just that great of a teacher. Naruto shook his head, already too attached to the crazy man all over again. Are you done? Jiraiya clicked his tongue in annoyance, such a buzzkill. Hello sensei. Whoa, you've gotten so old. Jiraiya remarked as he hopped into the Hokage office through the window. Hiruzen took a puff from his pipe and settled in his comfortable chair, already alerted about Jiraiya's presence. I can still kick your ass, my boy. But yes, I suppose my old age is indeed catching up to me. Jiraiya took a seat across him. You're still not senile, so I wouldn't worry about that yet. Hiruzen let out a cough. Thanks for the unnecessary validation, I guess. Jiraiya discreetly passed a book with a suspiciously explicit cover towards the Hokage, and Hiruzen immediately put it in his drawer. The two of them pretended as if that never happened. Jiraiya eyed the books and scrolls on the shelf by the window. I met Naruto. Hiruzen hummed, and he startled me, Jiraiya recalled. I don't know how his stealth is that good, but I'll look into that later. The brat then asked me to train him. I accepted. He doesn't seem half as dumb as I imagined he would be. The Hokage raised an eyebrow. So? That's a good thing, right? Jiraiya leaned into his chair. I guess so. But my intel on him from just 2 years ago didn't describe him as he was today. He paused. What happened? Hiruzen frowned. Now that you mention it, even I noticed this oddity. His academy reports and his current skill from mission reports aren't consistent at all. Jiraiya rubbed his neck. I don't really doubt Kakashi's competence as a teacher, but I don't think he's the root of this change. Hiruzen took another puff. Me neither. He pursed his lips, looking thoughtful. It doesn't matter though, the Hokage said finally. If Naruto is becoming an amazing ninja and if he's growing as a person, I don't think we should be suspicious of it and hinder his progress. Jiraiya sighed. Yeah, you're right. Always a wise one you are, sensei. Hiruzen chuckled and went back to signing some document. Jiraiya stood up and roamed up to the cabinet to the far left, idly glancing at the paperwork inside. One who didn't really know this side of Jiraiya would be surprised to find the usually loud and energetic Sunin look so calm and quiet. Sensei, he began, now that you're done stalling, how about you tell me about what you wrote in your letter? Hiruzen slowly put his brush aside. Well, all right. I have to discuss this sooner or later anyway. Jiraiya nodded, waiting for Hiruzen to proceed. As you must have read already, I want to resign from my position as the Hokage. He turned his chair, facing the huge window overlooking the entirety of Konoha. I won't ask you, I already know you won't accept the position. But I must ask of you a favor. Jiraiya walked back to his seat. Let me guess. You want me to get Tsunade back, right? Hiruzen huffed a laugh. Yes. He turned. So you'll do it? Jiraiya grinned. Of course I will. You just have to buy me tons of sake in exchange. Hiruzen smiled, eyes crinkling. Why? You're planning to follow in Tsunade's footsteps. Oh come on. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just a sake enthusiast. I can appreciate its good taste. Hiruzen waved a bunch of papers. Whatever. Just get on with the search after the Chunin exam finals, all right? Jiraiya nodded, getting up. Leave it up to me, sensei. Before he could hop off the window again, Hiruzen called out, by the way, good work with exposing Mizuki. For the rest of the day Jiraiya wondered what the hell was Hiruzen talking about. The whole of next week was spent in training by Naruto. He met up with the Toad Sage in his usual training ground. He'd then pretend his hardest to struggle with the summoning, but inevitably, ending up succeeding at it. After having pointless conversations with countless little toads, Jiraiya finally deemed him capable to summon the Toad Chief. Remember, try to connect with the other chakra you have inside yourself. Naruto hid his smirk and nodded seriously. I'll try my best. You've become such a great actor. Kurama commented, voice sounding amused. Naruto closed his eyes and found himself sitting atop the orange fluffy head of the nine-tailed beast. He grinned, long time no see Hakuru. Kurama growled, but it was supposed to be a laugh. Yeah, but I've been seeing all the trickery you're doing, you complete bastard. Naruto sprawled onto the creature's soft fur. It's fun, okay? Besides, if you were in my shoes, you'd do the same. I'm pretty sure you'd terrorize all my friends to hell and back actually. Kurama poked Naruto with his nail. Should I pass chakra now? This much time is believable for an effort. Naruto hummed, all right. Let's do it. He opened his eyes, feeling a surge of the familiar, potent chakra burning soothingly in his coils. He shouted out the jutsu and channeled the appropriate amount of chakra with the help of the proper hand signs. The chakra built up under his palms, glowing a fiery red, and morphed into a giant dome which was replaced by a magnanimous toad the next instant. Jiraiya's eyes widened. Gamabunta. He whispered, disbelief seeping into his voice. He really hadn't expected Naruto to harness the Kyuubi's chakra in his first try. He had been planning on using that ravine, but it seemed it wasn't necessary now. Gamabunta looked extremely annoyed. You idiot. How dare you summon me when there's no enemy in sight? I will end you, Jiraiya. Jiraiya broke out of his shock and raised his hands in a placating manner. Ah, Gamabunta, how nice to see you again. And, I'm not the one who summoned you. Naruto hopped off the huge amphibian. I did. He said, grinning. Gamabunta eyed Naruto like one would eye a cockroach. He scoffed, as if a mere brat like you could summon me. Instead of getting indignant or annoyed, Naruto smirked. Hey chief, if you don't believe me then test me, yeah. I want him to sign the contract. Jiraiya chimed in, he's ready. Gamabunta looked at Naruto again, this time with recognition. Oh, now I see. This is that Minato's kid, his mind provided. Fine then, hop on again. I'll test you, as you requested. Naruto easily jumped back on the toad's head, already sticking his feet with chakra on the slightly slippery skin. And so the test began. Just like the last time, Naruto stayed put till sunset, in fact, managing to stay on till the very end. He started out strong and firm, his feet planted steadily on the toad's head. As the hours went by and Gamabunta started moving more aggressively, Jiraiya feared that Naruto would fall. Fortunately, his worries were in vain. Because not once did Naruto stumble or falter. He went as far as to make small talk with the Toad Chief, which was shocking for Gamabunta, albeit pleasant and nice. Gamabunta huffed at the end, a little tired with all the exercise. Just sign the contract already, he said. Naruto happily complied, and if he was a little smug after that, neither Jiraiya nor Gamabunta called him out on it. Wow! Naruto said as he chewed on some ramen, this new recipe is going to blow everyone's minds. Ayam. Ayam said, another bowl in front of the blonde. Really? You think so? Absolutely. Naruto kicked the leg of the chair beside him, prompting its occupant to look at him. Go on, tell her how good it is. Shikamaru sighed, swallowing his mouthful slowly. He smiled lazily at Ayam. Yes. To whatever Naruto said. Ayam chuckled. Thanks guys. I'm going at it to the menu soon. Dad just wanted me to have a taste check with Naruto first. Naruto gave her a thumbs up. Go for it. Ayam nodded and then went back to the kitchen to prepare the orders of other customers. Naruto and Shikamaru ate in silence for a while. So you're training alone with Asuma? Naruto asked, slurping a noodle. Shikamaru carefully put 3 ramen noodles in his mouth. Yeah, we've been going over tactics and improving my range and stamina. He groaned then, the exercises are killing me. Naruto patted his back. Cheer up you. You're finally overcoming your laziness, it's a time to celebrate and not fret. Shikamaru glanced at Naruto from the corner of his eye. This is all against my wishes. Naruto smiled a little. Liar. I'm pretty sure that you yourself went to Asuma asking for personal training. He looked at Shikamaru. I know you want to do well. Shikamaru, smartly, did not reply. They paid for their meals and after complimenting Ayam again, the two started towards the Hokage monument, hoping to just cloud watch up there for a while. How's the Sunin as a teacher? Shikamaru inquired. Oh, he's awful. Naruto instantly said, but added, yet, he still manages to somehow train me well and be fun too. Shikamaru rolled his eyes. I still can't believe that you just walked up to the fucking Sunin and told him to teach you. He shook his head fondly. You never fail to surprise me. Nero nudged shoulders with him playfully. I'm just amazing that way. And as Shikamaru lay beside Naruto, he thought that yeah, he really is amazing. One of the bane of Naruto's existence was planning and execution. The oncoming threat of Orochimaru's invasion was a known factor. A countermeasure to that threat was a slow something Naruto already knew. But executing that plan came in with many small details and technicalities that just made the whole task unnecessarily difficult. 2 of those small hindrances were the upcoming deaths of the Otonin, Dosuo, and the Konoha's special Jounin, Hate. Both of these deaths had took place sometime in the week before the Chunin finals. He couldn't remember the exact day though. This time around, Naruto wouldn't be in Konoha to stop them if they took place 2 days before the finals, considering he had to go after Orochimaru. A small reprieve was the fact that Kabuto would also leave 2 days before the finals, so chances of Hayate dying in those 2 days would be 0. It was still a gamble though, trying to prevent these deaths all by himself. So Naruto devised another plan which brought him to Jiraiya in the middle of the night. The old sage was peacefully sleeping on his bed. Naruto knew that Jiraiya was already aware that Orochimaru was on the move. PSSST, PSSST. Wake up you pervert. He whispered, patting Jiraiya's shoulder repeatedly. He tried his best to look shaken up and bothered by something. It's important, wake up. Jiraiya cracked an eye open, and upon seeing Naruto, he clumsily sat up. Naruto? What are you doing here? Kami, it's 2 a.m. What's wrong? Naruto sat on his bed, opening up the lamp kept on the side table. Naruto pretended to look uncertain. I think Konoha is going to be attacked. Jiraiya stiffened. Why do you say that? Naruto looked at the sun and there was this guy in the first and second rounds of the Chunin exams, Kabuto I guess? I was out on a walk an hour ago, couldn't sleep. So, a few blocks away from the cage tower, this guy and another shinobi, I think he's from Suna, they were whispering to each other. I got curious and hid myself and listened in. He took in a long breath. They were talking about an invasion I think. I couldn't get many details except that it'll be on the day of the finals and the genin from Suna, Gaara, is somehow involved in all of this. Naruto frowned. Yeah, that's it. I'm worried. Jiraiya sat silently for a while. He knew that something was up and he was going to ask the Hokage to send in a spy to gather intel from this Kabuto, but seemed like luck was on their side. Naruto had already heard crucial information. You're sure that's what you heard? And you're sure they didn't see you or notice you at all? I'm completely sure. That's what happened. And there was no chance they knew I was there. I was masking my chakra and was hiding behind a huge wall. Jiraiya accepted the answer. He had faith in Naruto. He knew the boy had bizarrely good kills in stealth despite being so full of life. He patted his back assuringly. You did good, thanks for telling me this. I'll handle it from here. You go back now, we're still training in the morning tomorrow. Naruto smiled at him and took off after a goodbye. Really, Naruto felt a little guilty deceiving his mentor in such a manner. But he couldn't help it, this was the only way he knew that Kabuto and Gaara would be constantly monitored even if he himself wasn't the one doing it. With luck, Kabuto might not be able to accompany Orochimaru, which would make things a lot easier for Naruto. And with Gaara under vigilance, killing Dosa would be prevented. Besides, he had time. Maybe he could talk to Gaara before the finals. He sighed, praying to whichever entity that resided above to make his plan work. His brain was tired with all the thinking already. Chapter 18, Jinhyuriki. It was almost a week later when Naruto finally managed to find Gaara alone, standing vacantly on a rooftop, away from the constant presence of his siblings and teacher. They'd made it a point to keep Gaara under watch, always following his movements like hawks, wary that Gaara would go on some bloody rampage the moment their eyes left him. But now, as Gaara stood under the full moon, gentle wind ruffling his red hair, his face etched into something that resembled peace, he didn't look half as threatening his siblings thought he was. He looked like a child. Albeit, a child who'd seen too much, been through too much. Naruto hopped onto the roof silently, aware of the other Konoha Jounin who had been assigned to keep a watch over Gaara. He wouldn't stop Naruto, not unless the two genin somehow got into a fight. Hey, Naruto greeted softly, stopping his approach towards Gaara a few feet away, like seeing the moon at night. Gaara tensed immediately, his crossed arms tightening their grip and grains of sand already hovering protectively around Gaara. Why are you here, Konoha Genin? He asked, alert and on edge, but his voice still held a practiced calmness. Naruto smiled and took another 2 steps towards him. You're not the only one who enjoys the beauty of the moon. Gaara urged more sand out of his gourd. Uzumaki, was it? The blonde hummed. Yeah, Uzumaki Naruto, that's me. And you're Gaara? It wasn't a question yet. Gaara nodded anyway, one hand around the strap of his sand container now. Gaara tried to sense Naruto's chakra but soon realized that the other genin was suppressing it. Heavily and skillfully. Next, he tried to find the intent with which Naruto had started a conversation with him. All reasons Gaara came up with only further helped to infuriate him. He was preparing for a fight. But no hostility leaked through Naruto's words or demeanor, so Gaara forced himself to relax, though he knew it won't last long, not with Shukaku's consciousness stirring within him. Any minute now, the beast's bloodlust would overwhelm him. Calm down, Naruto's voice broke Gaara's train of thought, I mean no harm. Just here for a casual talk and maybe stare at the sky and unwind for a bit. Gaara frowned. People didn't just casually walk up to him to have a chat. No, people avoided him like the plague or came at him with the intent to kill or harm. You're weird, Uzumaki, he commented, and it wasn't mocking or demeaning. He really was confused with the Konoha shinobi's behavior. Don't I scare you? I reek of murderous intent. Naruto shrugged, no you don't. Not yet anyway, he considered something for a bit, the guy inside, he's not influencing you right now, is he? Gaara's eyebrows rose the slightest bit, but his reaction was more evident in the way his sand jerked violently, forming into sharp spears ready to send hurling straight into Naruto's flesh. Naruto didn't flinch or bat an eye at that. How do you know? Gaara asked, voice low and threatening. Naruto raised a hand, dismissing and uncaring towards his left, but Gaara didn't know who it was that Naruto was signaling. It was the Jounin, now ready to step into action. The older shinobi backed down, still vigilant and observant of the scene playing out in front of him. Naruto turned his attention towards Gaara again, how do I know? He repeated again, tilting his head as he regarded Gaara with a sort of understanding that Gaara had never felt before. After all, who could empathize with a monster like him? Naruto chuckled, finally letting out his chakra, I know because I'm just like you, Gaara. I, too, have a chakra entity inside me. Gaara inhaled sharply, still not letting the sand weapons out of his control, you're a Jinchuriki too. Naruto grinned, he sat directly on the roof, calmed by the cool surface and beckoned for Gaara to join in, come on, let's just enjoy this for a while. Gaara didn't move an inch, he just looked at Naruto, who looked completely at peace, posture slouched and welcoming. Naruto didn't speak up again or try to force Gaara to come sit down. Gaara considered his options. He could either leave, now that his usual spot had been crowded by another person, or he could give this a chance. He didn't want friends or anything, but maybe a little company, especially with one who shared his circumstances, won't be so bad. So, quietly, hesitantly, Gaara made his way towards Naruto and sat beside him. Not too close though, and let his sand loose between himself and Naruto. He wasn't a trusting person, that much was the fruit of his upbringing. It is difficult, isn't it? Naruto remarked idly, still keeping his gaze on the silver moon. Gaara didn't know what Naruto was talking about. Or so he told himself. Because somewhere deep down, Gaara knew. He understood what Naruto was referring to. That they fear you, they fear the power you hold. They forget that you're a human who can feel, who can get happy and sad and angry just like them. Naruto paused, trying to gauge whether Gaara was actually listening to him. He needed the redhead to know he was genuine right now, that he was sharing a piece of himself, of his own life with Gaara, one which Gaara himself had experienced in a way. They treat you like a monster because they think that's all you are. And the funny part is that you aren't a monster. Never have been. But just because you're treated as such, there's no other option for you than to become one. Naruto chuckled, it was bitter and his face was hard and his jaw was tight. This wasn't an easy topic to talk about. Not when they both had wounds, half sewn, half shut. At least, Naruto had it better, even now, with the mental fortitude of an adult. Gaara didn't have such luxury, and so his sand thrashed in his gourd, begging to break free and somehow make the blonde shut up, to make him stop things that resurfaced so many memories from his childhood. But Gaara held that instinct back. He didn't want to kill or injure the blonde, he didn't want more blood on his hands. He knew it won't last long, this control he had over his mind, soon, very soon he'll drown under the malice that Shukaku inevitably brought with him. Hey, Naruto called out gently, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you remember. I just wanted you to know that I understand and that you're not alone, okay Gaara? Gaara grunted faintly, but his head started throbbing furiously. He's coming back out, isn't he? Gaara rubbed his temples, yeah. Naruto gritted his teeth and scooted towards him. Gaara, buddy, listen to me. Gaara looked into Naruto's sincere eyes. You trust me? Gaara wanted to scoff. He'd just met this guy and he had the audacity to ask this question? Like hell he'd trust someone who could just be playing nice to hurt him later. I don't. He gritted out, trying but failing to soothe the ache in his head. Naruto sighed, I guess that's fair. He shifted away again. Your seal, Naruto spoke once more, it's weak, you know that. So, maybe, someday when you do trust me, will you let me fix it? It'll be better for you, I can promise that much. Gaara didn't let the hope that bloomed in his chest affect him and felt some of his rational thinking get overshadowed by Shukaku's negative influence. That day will never arrive, Uzumaki. I'm a weapon, and my job is to kill. Shukaku helps me in that. Naruto stood up, shaking his head in disagreement. That's your father speaking. Not you. One day Gaara, he bent, staring right into Gaara's eyes, one day it'll be better. Till then, you need to be true to yourself and fight Shukaku. He's not that bad, he's lonely just like you. But he's a big asshole, and little manic, but I know you can tame his rage. I believe in you. He stepped back and turned to walk away while Gaara stayed there, clutching his hair as Shukaku's crazy babbling filled his mind. For once, something else sounded louder than the beast's voice in his head. And those were Naruto's words. Gaara. Naruto called out, waving a hand from the opposite roof, we're friends now by the way, and no, you don't get any say in the matter. He declared with a bright grin and leaped towards the next rooftop. Gaara's lips curled upwards despite the pain and Shukaku's yells to kill the blonde. Friends, huh? Well, that's definitely new. Naruto looked at the piece of paper before him with an unwavering intensity, eyeing each little detail on it once, twice, thrice, 199,392 times. Boss, quit it. We've all checked it already. It's perfect. Another Naruto a shadow clone whined. Naruto tsked, so impatient, shaking his head in disappointment. We're literally you know that right? Another clone asked, giving him a blank stare. Nah, Naruto waved the seal in his hand, the jutsu is defective. Y'all are more annoying, even worse than I am. A pissed clone kicked him on his ankle, will you shut up and put it on one of us already? I either want to poof out or impersonate you for the next 2 days. Naruto pouted at him, no, not you. You're too grumpy. You can go. The clone gave Naruto another annoyed look before poofing away. The clone with a drier humor than the originals patted the first clone's shoulder, hope you don't poof away before the time's up, he smiled innocently, good luck. Of course he poofed out of existence too before Naruto or his other copy could stop him. The only remaining clone chuckled, fine then, stick it on me. I'm ready for this. Naruto looked over the seal one last time before reluctantly placing it on the clone and infusing the required amount of chakra into it. Well, this should last till I get back. Remember, act like me and do stuff I do. Don't act suspicious for Kami's sake, alright? The clone raised up 2 thumbs and grinned just as happily as Naruto does, I've got it dummy, this will be a piece of cake. Naruto jabbed him in the ribs, if you mess this up, I'll personally summon your ass and torture you for days with this seal so you don't poof away. The clone swatted his hands away, gulping, haha, funny. Don't worry though, I've got this. Naruto backed off, still not entirely convinced that this was a good idea, but since he had no other option, he reasoned that this will have to do. That night, when Orochimaru waited outside the forest surrounding Konoha, he didn't reconvene with Kabuto. Instead all he received was a small note from his small black snake that said, I'm under suspicion. They're onto us. Can't make it. K. Orochimaru crushed the note in his hand and hissed angrily. But in just a minute, the ex-Konohanin was calm and composed again, already at terms with a few changes in his plans. He could still take down the Kaze cage easily. He'll just have to waste a little more time on the cage's entourage now that Kabuto wasn't there to take care of the small fries. It's fine. It's still doable. Too bad for Orochimaru that he didn't consider the possibility of a certain blonde shinobi following after him, silent in his pursuit, a predator prepping to pounce on his prey. And just like that, Orochimaru moved towards Suna. Chapter 19, Life Ends. Orochimaru watched from atop a tree at the edge of Konoha's forest. Ahead of him was a clear expanse of land. A few commoners were milling around at the opposite end, dragging carts along with them. 2 more minutes, and he'd be able to make a straight run for it. Just like he'd expected, the group of people disappeared towards the east, probably on their way to some small, no-name village. Licking his lips, he jumped down, sticking to the circumference of the clearing. He didn't have a reason to be stealthy really, anyone who would see him would either run away or fight him. In which case, Orochimaru would of course kill them. So the only reason he was being stealthy was to save time. He knew the Kazekage would exit the desert by evening and he wanted to confront him then and there. As Orochimaru covered half of the distance towards the opposite end, a faint rustle behind him caught his attention. He halted immediately, and substituted himself with his own mud clone that he'd made earlier. And thankfully so, because true to his instincts, a wind bomb exploded against his clone, throwing stakes of dirty and muck everywhere. From his place a few meters away, Orochimaru peered through the bushes. The only thing his eyes caught were yellow hair. He chuckled, whoever this person was, they were quite ballsy to sneak up on him this way. Not to mention, skilled as well. Not one to shy away from a fight, Orochimaru simply walked a few steps, away from his hiding spot, and it seemed as if his opponent was also of the same mind. Because there, standing in a defensive stance was Naruto Uzumaki, the genin from Konoha, ready for a battle. Ah, how fascinating. A Konoha shinobi, genin no less, followed me and I didn't even realize it. Orochimaru spoke, tone light and playful, but internally, he knew it was no coincidence or luck that Naruto had managed to trail him so expertly. Naruto smiled coldly, "Cut the crap, Orochimaru. I'm not in the mood to have a nice chat with you. Oh, so eager to fight me? Naruto-kun, here I was looking to talk with you some more." Naruto didn't reply, instead he gripped harder on his kunai. Orochimaru's eyebrow curled upwards, as he took a stance of his own. "Why are you here, Naruto-kun?" he hissed, "and how did you know about this? Surely, that old Hokage hasn't gone senile enough to send a genin after me if he knew my plans." "Oh, but he didn't send me, Orochimaru, I'm here on my own accord." Orochimaru didn't let his confusion show on his face. In all honesty, he didn't mind this at all. He can easily capture Naruto now that the silly boy had decided to follow him outside the village, all alone. Pity though, he'd have loved to kill the boy for having such guts. "You've made a big mistake coming here. Fighting me head on, a Sunin. You think you can beat me, boy?" Naruto smiled again, confident and a bit cocky. "Oh, Orochimaru, I don't think I can beat you, I know I will." So the boy was in over his head, huh? Well, then, Orochimaru would just have to beat the arrogance out of him. He attacked. In no time at all, Orochimaru was onto Naruto, aiming precise and forceful jabs at various pressure points on the genin's body. Much to his surprise, Naruto seemed to predict his movements despite Orochimaru's speed and blocked them with the side of his arms or hopped out of the way while throwing kicks at him. Naruto's counterattacks were unconventional. Sometimes he ducked and tried to grab his legs to make Orochimaru lose his balance, other times he tried to snatch his hair to get some leverage over him. Once, when Orochimaru went for a body throw, he swore that Naruto had tried to tickle him. It didn't feel like a fair fight for Orochimaru. It was almost as if the boy was playing with him. Angered by such behavior, Orochimaru created distance between the two. If Taijutsu won't bring the genin to his knees, then ninjutsu will. Creating seals faster than eyes can follow, he whispered the name of a jutsu and saw with satisfaction as a huge number of rock spears were hurled towards Naruto at impeccable speeds. He didn't drop his guard though. Kabuto's reports were always accurate, so he knew better than to underestimate Naruto. So he started with another set of seals and smiled when Naruto did indeed block his initial attack with multiple wind blades. Wind is weak against earth. And yet somehow the young Jinchuriki managed to overpower his attack. He probably expelled more chakra into the blades. Well, good. Let the boy waste away his chakra thoughtlessly. He completed a second set of seals and urged a lot of his chakra into the jutsu. A wind tornado. It circled around rapidly, picking up leaves, grass and broken sticks, some chunks of dirt and pebbles, adding to the impact of the attack. It was too wide-ranged for Naruto to simply move out of the way, not when Naruto had just completed blocking Orochimaru's previous attack. And so Naruto stood, unmoving as the tornado hit him. Orochimaru cursed under his breath and prayed that he hadn't killed the blonde. It would be too much of a hassle to find another suitable vessel. He really wanted Naruto as his next container. So imagine the shock the ninja received when the dust settled and the tornado subsided and Naruto stood in his original place, unruffled, not a hair out of place. Orochimaru concealed his shock behind a fake smile. I see. So you're not as dumb and reckless as I first thought. Orochimaru commented, regarding the boy again, that was a shadow clone all along, huh? Fine. You got me there. Naruto didn't give a response to the Sunin. Instead he broke into another attack, intent on engaging Orochimaru in taijutsu again. Naruto didn't want the Snake Sunin to get time for using ninjutsus. His repertoire was too big and too impressive to fight against. But Orochimaru had other plans. Naruto was a few feet away, when Orochimaru pulled out his sword, Kusanagi, and then, the real fight started. Naruto stopped his run and hastily summoned a katana he stored in a seal from his pocket, just as Kusanagi almost sliced his neck. Blocking Orochimaru's sword with his own, he tried to kick the Sunin away, aware that his own sword was no match against Kusanagi. Orochimaru seemed prepared though, because he angled his body away from Naruto and put more pressure in his strike. A crack formed in Naruto's katana and he cursed, dropping the weapon as he hopped backwards. Kusanagi could cut through almost all materials. Ah, well, all materials. Naruto removed another katana from his seal. He always carried a set of 4 with him and he didn't regret it at all right now. When the next strike came in, Naruto channeled wind chakra through his weapon, covering both sides of his blade in a thick layer of wind-natured chakra. As he'd speculated, Kusanagi couldn't slice through chakra itself, so at least the katana would hold against it. Nevertheless, the fact remained that Orochimaru was more skilled than Naruto in Kenjutsu, so Naruto was naturally on the defensive. He suffered a few cuts on his arms here and there, but nothing serious. In all honesty, Naruto was just stalling. He'd noticed the few villagers strolling across the clearing. Even though they'd left the area, if a large-scale battle was to ensue here, they'd definitely catch sight of it, and Naruto didn't want that at all. But now, after almost 20 minutes of pointless fighting, he was sure they'd be out of range for either seeing or hearing anything they did here. So he grinned, and shoved his katana towards Orochimaru, who jolted at the sudden turn of tactics. Flipping a few meters away, he looked up and whispered, "Let's do it, Kurama." The chakra beast inside of him grinned devilishly and passed almost all his chakra to Naruto. A brilliant yellow cover formed around Naruto's body, making him look like a beacon of light. Orochimaru stilled in his tracks. That's impossible. How are you controlling so much of the Kyuubi's chakra? That damn Hiruzen trained you so well." Naruto sighed dramatically. "Oh, but he didn't train me, Orochimaru. Get that in your head, will you?" The rogue nin gritted his teeth, and realizing the sheer capacity of chakra rolling from Naruto, he made an impulsive decision. Really, it wasn't like he had much choice. He summoned Manda. "Orochimaru," the giant of a snake hissed menacingly, "I hope you have sacrifices ready for me, because if not, I'm not above eating you." "I do. And we have a fight to win right now, so will you focus for once or not?" Manda flicked the end of his body, clearly agitated. Naruto didn't stay stationary for long. Within the next few seconds, he drew out an immense amount of his chakra mixed with Kurama's and summoned Manda's sworn rival, the Chief Toad, Gamabunta. "Brat!" the chief shouted upon registering the scene before him, "What do you think you're doing? This is Orochimaru, why are you fighting him? And alone no less." Naruto crossed his legs as he sat on the toad's head, annoyed by the questioning. "I'm here to defeat Orochimaru, because if I don't, this bastard is invading Konoha, so you better help me out." Gamabunta decided that he'd interrogate his summoner later, when Manda's sharp teeth weren't inches from his skin, ready to bite off his flesh. With a grunt, he hopped away, dodging the attack of the despicable snake. Manda annoyed him a lot. "Running away, Gamabunta," the purple animal hissed, "afraid to face me? No wonder though, that Jiraiya has left you with this puny human. Even he can see how useless you really are. Naruto thanked Manda in his head for so effectively riling up the mountainous toad, because now the chief was in what Naruto dubbed as the battle mode. With a reverse grip on his dagger, Gamabunta swung the blade neatly, and made an expression that would be the toad equivalent of smirking when Manda's skin opened up, giving way to the flesh underneath. Hissing, Manda felt blood ooze out and pain erupt on his side. Above him, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes at Naruto, who was whispering something to the toad chief. Consequently, the toad puffed his cheeks, and blew bullets of toad oil from his mouth in rapid succession. But the toad wasn't the only one puffing his cheeks. Naruto was doing the same. As realization hit Orochimaru, he hopped from Manda's head, throwing his hands onto the ground, and summoned the triple Rashomon for defense just as Naruto's fire dragon collided with the oil bullets, forming something that Orochimaru could only call a blazing inferno. His defense held strong, but only barely. Not to mention, his chakra was running out. But before he could plan a strategy, Naruto was onto him, twisting his arms behind his head as Naruto landed on his shoulders, choking his neck with both his legs. It was an odd sight. Naruto rapped against his upper body as Orochimaru tried to breathe through the leg hold. Seeing no escape, he controlled Kusanagi, and his faithful sword answered his call. Unfortunately for him, Naruto was ready. The genin once again pulled out Kyuubi's chakra, this time two bright yellow chakra arms extended from his body, holding tightly onto Kusanagi. The sword couldn't move an inch. And that's when Orochimaru felt it. Panic. From the corner of his eye, he could see Manda struggling against Gamabunta, the toad winning against the snake. Orochimaru knew where this was headed. If Manda knew he would lose, the bastard would unsummon himself. He held no real loyalty towards Orochimaru. So Orochimaru was alone in this despite everything. As his breath hitched further, no air entering his windpipe, Naruto pressuring him onto the ground, the beast's fiery chakra leaking in and eroding his skin, Orochimaru felt unadulterated fear for the first time in his life. A genin. A fucking genin had bested him. This couldn't be true, right? Something was wrong. No matter what training Naruto had received, he couldn't be this strong. Total control over a Byakuya? Super quick reflexes? Rapport with the chief toad? Orochimaru knew he was missing something here. Who are you? He rasped out, a little surprised that his voice box was still functional with how intensely Naruto was crushing his throat. Naruto smiled at him again, the same cold smile. Naruto. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Orochimaru managed to huff a laugh as he saw Manda poof away in the distance. The little sounds in the background oddly calmed him down. And no. Why Yuri Lion, the Sunin said, and bit his tongue when Naruto put more force in his hold. Turning his position, Naruto held Orochimaru's throat in one hand, holding a kunao in another. Two other chakra paws pinned the Sunin on the ground. There really was no escape. You're right, Naruto said at last, but I am Naruto Uzumaki. Just not from this timeline. With that, Naruto's kunao found Orochimaru's heart and death embraced the snake Sunin at long last. Later, after Naruto had bound Gamabunta by an oath to not disclose the happenings of the day to anyone, with lots of persuasion and promises of barrels and barrels of sake, and after he was over the fact that he had in fact killed someone, he burned Orochimaru's body. He didn't want to take a chance with him. He still had those cursed seals to deal with though, another problem altogether. But the invasion was as good as stopped already. The leader was dead. Orochimaru was dead. Taking a quick bath in a river, he turned his back on Orochimaru's remains and headed towards Konoha again. He had the Chunin exam finals to fight in after all. Chapter 20, Fists and Puppets. Whispers. That's all Sasuke could keep his mind on, as he stood in the open stadium for their Chunin finals. The audience was whispering continuously, probably sharing their excitement with each other. But those whispers weren't the ones unsettling Sasuke. No, the whispers from the masked men and the older shinobi were the ones bothering the Uchiha. They'd started on his way to the grounds, when a flurry of shinobi activity had broken out, Jounins hopping from rooftop to rooftop in a hurry. First he'd thought it was all because of the exams. Maybe the Jounin were to reach early for securing the entries and exits. That option was soon dismissed as he realized that the Jounins on duty were already present on their spots, but the additional Jounins milling around, anxious and on edge, were extras. But then the whispers changed. From nervous and furious, they became hopeful and joyous. Sasuke didn't know what caused this sudden change in the mood, but he knew that the Chunin messenger from the gates had brought the news behind it. The masked men seemed put off, and a certain stern-looking man with bandages on one side of his face kept stealing glances at him, and Sasuke glared back when he caught the old bastard's eye. The old man was also whispering constantly with two black-clad men in masks. All these hushed tones were grating on his nerves. Someone gently nudged him on the side. "Hey, are you nervous or something?" Sakura asked, frowning in worry. "You seem a bit jittery." Sasuke scowled but didn't disagree. "Aren't you observing all this shady shit? All these whispers and Jounins swarming the circumference, even though most shinobi get the day off on Chunin finals so they can enjoy from the audience." Sakura sighed. "I know, I bumped into Kurane-sensei on the way here. It looked like the Hokage summoned all the active shinobi a couple hours ago. She seemed very serious and wished me luck. But she also told me to take care of myself." Almost as if she was hinting that there would be some trouble. Sasuke nodded, but now they're all just relaxed again. "What the fuck is happening? And where in Kami's name is Naruto?" "He'll be here in a bit," Shikamaru replied offhandedly from behind the two Team 7 members. Sakura leveled him with a knowing look. "It's not a good thing to eavesdrop, Shikamaru." The Nara rolled his eyes at her, pocketing his hands. "Like you weren't just discussing about the whispers y'all just happened to hear just a moment ago." "Hey. That's different and you know it." Shikamaru looked on the verge of yawning. "Look, I don't care right now. I just thought you two would like to know that Naruto is caught up in some shit. I went to his house before coming here and he looked like he'd just woken up." Sasuke snorted. "Leave it to that idiot to oversleep on such an important day." Sakura smiled very widely. "If he misses my match, I swear to God that he won't live to see another day." Shikamaru tuned both of them out, and turned his attention towards the Suna Genins. Just like Team 7, all three members had qualified for the finals. He was curious about the red-haired shinobi who seemed surprisingly less hostile now, considering that the last time Shikamaru had seen the boy, he was trying to crush Lee's limbs altogether. He wondered if this was the calm before the storm. Soon enough, the proctor, Hayate, stood before the rock-carved podium and made minimal effort to gain anyone's attention. Nevertheless, the genin, all alert and ready, listened to the sickly-looking man as he filled them on the rules of the exam. He swept his eyes across the set of 8 genin and shrugged upon realizing that one was missing. There is an odd number of finalists, so one genin will move straight to the semi-finals. That genin will be decided randomly. Hayate said, sounding more bored than Shikamaru ever had. The Nara wondered just how much the proctor was being paid to do this job. In front of them, the Hokage stood up from his perched seat and set a bowl of chits in front of the Kaze cage, who looked extremely pale and uncertain for some reason. Nevertheless, he picked out a chit, read its contents and whispered something to the Hokage. Hiruzen faced the impressive audience ahead of him and declared, "The genin getting an automatic pass is Niji Hyuga from Konohagakure." A polite round of applause went through the stadium and Niji smiled, a little smug, and Shikamaru just knew that the Byakugan user thought that this was the effect of his destiny or some such bullshit. "Alright then," Hayate spoke again, "let's get started. First match will be Sakura Haruno vs Kankuro. You two kindly stay behind while the rest of you move on to the bleachers." Sakura stayed put, as she suppressed the slight tremors of nervousness crawling up her spine. Sasuke murmured a good luck to her as he went up. The Kunoichi eyed her opponent, preparing herself for the oncoming battle. She'd known that she would go against Kankuro for a month now, but didn't have any particular advantage since Kankuro knew about the pairings just as she did. She placed her legs firmly, and waited. Soon the stadium was deadly quiet and the proctor raised his arm to start the match. A commotion in the nearby stands caught Sakura's eyes, and risking a moment of inattention, she snuck a glance towards them. There, standing just on the edge of the railings, was Naruto, waving enthusiastically at her, grinning all the while. Feeling more of her worries evaporate, Sakura chuckled inwardly. She wouldn't have to kill Naruto after all. Deshin! The shout startled Sakura and she immediately spun around, hands rising to block any attacks. Much to her surprise, none came. Kankuro stood across her in a peculiar stance with his hands behind his back where the obnoxiously big bandage-wrapped puppet was held. Well, if he was just going to stand and stare, then Sakura would make the first move. She leaped, kicking up as much dirt as she could and closed the distance between the two. It wasn't much of an vision obstruction strategy than it was a tactic for distraction. As the dust provided her with momentary cover, she seamlessly weaved her chakra with the nearby air and executed a signless, wordless genjutsu. Yes, this is how far she'd come with her month-long rigorous training. It had been brutal and she couldn't do this for more than 2 genjutsus, both only B ranks, but it was commendable for a mere genin to achieve this feat. Kankuro didn't pick up on the genjutsu, which played with eyesight and reaction speed. The jutsu made it so that Sakura's approach was perceived a bit slowly than normal by Kankuro. So he saw the kunoichi run towards him, fist coiled tightly, an expression stony, and he did unfurl his reliable puppet for defense, but just 2 seconds too late. Sakura's fist met his puppet's left arms and it shattered right at the joint. Narrowing his eyes, he undid the genjutsu by circulating his chakra turbulently. He jerked his fingers back, and they moved fluidly, as if playing the piano. His puppet flew next to him and he hopped several feet away, regaining composure as Sakura moved towards him relentlessly. She seemed dead set on getting close to him. Kankuro knew that Sakura had figured out his weak spot, close combat. He was shit at taijutsu since he'd only overcommitted his time to developing his puppetry. Sakura threw a kunao after briefly infusing it with chakra. It looked randomly aimed, but she'd thrown it at a volume of air just parallel to Kankuro's fingers to see if the kunao could cut through his chakra strings. Kankuro stiffened a bit before smirking at her. He'd already realized what she was up to. Just a few steps away from Kankuro, his blasted puppet hindered Sakura's path again. This time the body of the overgrown doll opened at almost every surface to reveal pointed tips of metal. One wrong hit and Sakura would have a knife wound to deal with. She rolled to the ground and moved out of the way, but the puppet pursued her after she was on her feet again. It seemed that Kankuro would be the one on offense now. Turning around as she ran in circles, Sakura tried to concentrate. Aiming a kunao to get stuck precisely between 2 separate body parts of the puppet, she threw it. She sighed, satisfied that her blade was now stuck between the gap connecting the puppet's lower abdomen and left thigh. The puppet tripped as Kankuro struggled to pull the strings harder to get the left leg to move in tandem with the right. Turning completely now, Sakura didn't waste a second before muttering a jutsu and channeling her chakra into it. She slammed her fingers on the ground and it cracked open as if it was merely made of glass. With the puppet so close to her, it fell throughout the cracks, no doubt chipping out plenty other body parts to pieces. Sakura huffed, as she sweated. A lot of her chakra went in this earth manipulation technique, but she was glad that it had worked. Kankuro's face paint didn't hide the crease around his eyes as he shut them in frustration. His weapon had been decimated so easily and now he didn't have any means to win. What good was a puppeteer without his puppet? If Kankuro knew he'd have to fight today, he'd have brought more puppets with himself. He didn't think that the invasion would be called off since Orochimaru was a no-show. Now here he was, underprepared, and almost defeated. Worse yet, Gaara was there, no doubt ashamed of him. He grit his teeth and shook his head. Opening his eyes, he saw Sakura approaching him again. She didn't want to give him any time to pull any last-minute tricks. Kankuro had won though. He'd only ever practiced it on small animals and his own self. Taking a deep breath, he quickly coiled the thin, unattached chakra strings coming out of his fingertips into a sturdy chakra rope. It shimmered a dull blue and he didn't care that Sakura could see it. Because he didn't give her any time to react. The rope caught her ankle mid-step and she faltered, her reflexes not fast enough to dodge the completely new attack. The chakra coiled around her skin violently, and she was positive that it would bruise a dark blue by nightfall, that is, if the bones hadn't broken already. She had to marvel for a millisecond at the way Kankuro could control his chakra externally. He was totally at ease with how it flowed, which wasn't someone could easily master. It was only a setback though. Sakura wouldn't let a foot trap keep her down. As far as she could tell, Kankuro couldn't make any more ropes or he would have already tied her whole body up completely. The ropes were made out of pure chakra, which meant that Kankuro's ability to make up almost solid ropes required a lot of chakra to achieve that density. Ignoring how her entire leg protested as pain shot through her foot, she ran as fast as she could towards Kankuro. The shinobi made a sloppy attempt to dodge her stomach punch only to get hit straight in the face. His nose was definitely broken. He yanked the rope on Sakura's foot, and she would have fallen face first on the ground if it wasn't for how close the two really were. Holding Kankuro's side as a support, Sakura swiftly hopped on one leg and whirled the boy before he could even comprehend the move she'd made. Finally smiling, Sakura placed a kunai on Kankuro's neck, who looked immensely displeased. "Do you yield?" Sakura's voice came out breathless, only then realizing how much she'd exerted his physical capabilities. Kankuro didn't reply but nodded jerkily. "Hey," coughed, "winner of this match is Sakura Haruno." While he looked completely unimpressed, the whole audience broke into boisterous cheers, clearly in awe by the subtleties of the tactics used in the match and the raw power of some moves. Sakura said awkwardly as she removed her hand from his neck, "Can you let go of my ankle now?" Kankuro's anger at his inadequacy remained, but some of his stone-cold look broke to become sheepish. Right. He cancelled his chakra output entirely, sorry about that." Sakura shook her head, tucking her now frizzy post-battle hair behind her ears. "You've nothing to be sorry for. That was one hell of a fight, don't you think? And that last move was so awesome. Your control with the strings is so precise." As Sakura rambled about Kankuro's competence, said Genin looked uncomfortable. He wondered if Gaara saw even 1% of what this kunoichi saw in his abilities. He coughed, "Good match, yeah. And congratulations." Sakura smiled at him, nodded and headed off. But not before bending and healing her own wound in just under 2 minutes. Kankuro stepped off the grounds too as Sasuke and Temari were called down. Naruto pushed Sasuke towards the stairs. "You better not lose, Seiso-kun." "I won't," Sasuke replied confidently. Naruto congratulated Sakura as she joined him on the stands. Things were going well. The invasion wasn't happening. Kabuto was captured for interrogation once his affiliation with Orochimaru had been confirmed, and soon could he persuaded to join Konoha in a more friendly relationship. Naruto's eyes burned as he spotted Danzo, looking far too eager to watch two Genins fight. The bastard was after Sasuke. Naruto realized this immediately. Dismissing those worries for now, he turned towards the ground just as Temari raised her fan for an attack. Check the description for the links to the author.